Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future of Space. I'm your host, Daniel Fox. Our guest today needs no introduction, the legendary William Shatner.
Well, you could
Bill,
introduce.
what?
You never know.
I-
There may be
You
somebody
never know. You never
in
know.
Antarctica who hasn't heard of that.
Legendary actor.
And we will
Um,
educate them when we get there later on.
yes,
You haven't heard of
yes.
Shackleton? Well, here's
Haven't
Shatner.
heard of Shatner. You might have heard of him on The Simpsons. How many times have you been on The Simpsons?
Simpsons? I don't know.
You
They
know
had,
the animated where
yeah, yeah. No,
yeah.
I'm a friend of producer, the writer, but I didn't know. No, I don't know. I don't know.
That's gonna be a trivia question on the ship. How
Yeah,
many
well,
times is Shatner?
I'll bring some film because I've never seen it. I
Excellent.
have in passing. I know it's funny and educated and all that kind of thing. But
Bill, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. You and I, we met at South by Southwest and then we had a couple of interactions, and now we're going to Antarctica together.
can you imagine the synchronicity of going to the Antarctic is fun to. From let me tell you a fun story. So, 25 years ago, I had a tragedy in my life. My wife died, and so I was forlorn. And about a year later, I bumped into a very beautiful woman whom I had seen at horse shows. Elizabeth Anderson is her name. And coincidentally, a famous photographer whose name I've forgotten, but whose picture people will remember, and then somebody will remember the name of the photographer. He had a fisheye lens. He lay down on his back. He had a fisheye lens, and the penguins all looked into the fisheye lens. And it was a famous picture that was published, and was the cover of whatever, National Geographic or something, famous magazines. And he became very famous. And now he was going to have a class, if you will, on photography, going to the Antarctic, and they asked me to come. Wow, to learn photography or how to photograph like this guy, spend a week or more, whatever the time was, in the Antarctic with this guy. But I'm so alone and I'm so lonely. Maybe this beautiful girl, his name's Elizabeth Anderson, will come with me. So I approached Elizabeth Anderson, who lived 90 miles outside of Los Angeles. And I said, listen, I'm being asked to go to the Antarctic and on this boat, separate cabins, all that. No, I don't have any. Uh, but if you'd like to come with me to the Antarctic, so what a great idea. But I have this business of training horses. Let me do pros and cons. So a couple of days later, she's apparently written all the pros and all the cons for going. And the cons won. She says, I can't go because I got X, Y, Z, and I can't go. And I thought, she can't go. I can't be alone in a cabin after all this terrible tragedy and all. I don't want to be alone. I'm not going to go. So I didn't go to the Antarctic. And now, 25 years later, Elizabeth, whom I married, and I are going to go to the Antarctic together on a long delayed Antarctica adventure.
Yes,
So
what a coincidence.
what is the difference between Antarctic and Antarctica?
I do. I've never looked it up other than I think it's just the difference of a name because
I,
you don't
Daniel,
have the difference in Arctic.
I've asked you a question you can't answer.
No, exactly. I'm speechless, but I will find the answer.
Yes.
Bill, when you've been to space, you have a love of nature that I want us to talk about, and also what space that uh, voyage on a rocket did to your love of nature. But when we think of Antarctica, what does it create in in your in your imagination? What do you see?
A dual picture, Daniel. I see when you say Antarctica, I see the throbbing animal life on the shores, the whales and the sea lions and all that grunting and the moving and the shoving and the thing and the march of the penguins. So there's this line of penguins walking along and going all that way, shitting along the way. So there's a brown stain on the
Yep.
white stain. And where are the penguins? Follow the trail, and,
Yeah.
and there are these millions of birds of life, and they have these adapted behavior of holding the eggs in their feet, because if it touches the ice, the egg will freeze, and the life form inside the egg will die. And so they handle this thing, and meanwhile they're squawking. They marry for life, and there's millions going quack quack, and out of the millions are going quack. They go, oh, there's Jeannie over there. I mean, the magic. And then I think of the loneliness of the explorers who tried to get to the South Pole by ski and by sled and tugging and dying of the cold and not being able to live, not living. And then I read about Shackleton and his boat, and he was going to go, and then the boat crushed in the ice, and jumping out and getting into lifeboats and going and making it to land, and nobody died because of Shackleton and his excellence. So this ferment of life and death in its starkness, that white background with life forms and krill going on underneath the ice, the energy of the earth, of the planet, is krill. Starts with these little miniature things of life, and they're eaten by bigger and bigger life forms, and finally we eat these life forms, and everybody lives. And then I saw where whales, which eat the krill, when they die, sometimes they're washed up on shore, and sometimes they sink to the bottom of the sea, and animals and worms and things live off the body of the whale. And so this intricate life going on, this hurly-burly of life going on in what appears to be white silence. And yet there's a thunderous thing going on above and below the ice. I just, I can't wait to sort of visit it.
Well, I can't wait. You know that Scott Kelly is a big Shackleton nerd, and he's planning on doing a presentation because we're visiting Elephant Island, Point Wild, where Shackleton departed and left his men behind for four
Oh,
months.
well, he left Elephant Island. That's where he,
Elephant,
he
yeah.
left most of his crew, went on to Georgia, wasn't it?
South Georgia.
So Georgia, then sent a ship back a year later, picked them all up. I don't know what they ate. They must have been living on seafood.
Penguins. And so they were super lucky to get there right before the penguins departed. So
The
um,
penguins departed Elephant Island?
yeah, so they
Why?
go there for nesting, and then
Oh,
for the rest of the season they go away, they go back to the seas, and then they go and spend their lives in the
wait
water.
a minute. The
So
penguin,
had they arrived at Elephant Island just a couple weeks later, there would have been no penguins for them to
no.
accumulate for food reserve. So
Well, they
incredible
didn't know
luck
this.
that
Did they
they,
kill enough to store so that they
yeah,
could live for, I mean, they
yeah.
lived for many months.
4 months until they were rescued right next
Oh.
to a glacier that we'll see. I'll show you. And when you're there and you're looking at the location and the premise and the conditions, it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
But it's
Uh,
also, your show is called In Space. It's also a example, a paean of praise of the adaptability of human beings and how human beings can cling to life. Apparently, we need water all the time, but we can go without food for many weeks. So they would need to have had fresh water on Elephant Island. What did they do?
the ice, they have to just melt
They would
to
just
figure
melt
out.
the ice. They had fire making utensils, I guess the stones and stuff. It
We'll have
is,
Scott telling us everything about it.
yeah. Well, I read the book a couple of times now.
Yeah.
I may read it again before I go. Um, the Shackleton voyage is the voyage of space. He went off into space. It happened to still be on gravitational Earth, but the loneliness, the aloneness, the lack of ability to communicate with any other humans would be the same as a spaceship going towards Mars, and a meteorite permeates the skin of the ship. And what are they going to do?
Yeah.
You know, what did they do when we have a problem? The headquarters, we have a problem. The astronaut said that, and I think that was the time they climbed into the LEM to survive. I think that was that voyage. But any one of those voyages, the astronauts climbed into the little vehicle, which I have been in. When I went to NASA at a particular time, they were getting ready to go to the moon. They invited me to go into the LEM. So I lay down in the hammock of the LEM, which is where they were lying back to absorb the G's, and this incredible number of instruments and switches and things like that was overwhelming. How they knew which did what, but not unlike Shackleton,
Yeah.
the space, to survive, uh, the ingenuity that it took to survive is the same.
Well, you mentioned about the human resiliency, and one of the questions that I often ask my guest is, well, related to space. What is the human story of space? But I think like taking away space, just in general, I think that there are a lot of negative narrative about who we are as a species. But for you, what would be the essence of the human story?
Apparently, in the aboriginal soup that was the early oceans, a one cell thing entity absorbed another one cell thing that had somehow. This is flimsy knowledge that somebody much more intelligent than I will explain. But another cell had mitochondria, which is the engine of cellular life. So instead of eating and destroying the mitochondria cell, the other one cell thing absorbed it, co-opted, cooperated with. And that was our beginning of life. So my thought is our destiny has always been cooperation, because human beings were the most vulnerable entities on life at a certain point. Everybody ate a human being. Have you tasted the Fox family? Really good. You know, delicious. Uh, the
Barbecue
barbecue?
with a pinch
No,
of
no.
salt.
Barbecue adds too much. They taste almost in the raw. You got to taste the Fox family. So there was in my imagination, the beginning of cooperation. All of nature around us, as we said earlier, is fighting for survival. There's a war going on between all the plants. We surmise, maybe we know for sure, that the algae formed in the ocean. The algae crept up onto the shores of the barren land that was forming 3.8 billion years ago and became plant life. So we emerged, the plant life emerged from the same background as humans did. So we have in us this fighting for life, this desire to exist that all of nature has. I mean, a vine climbing up a tree to reach the sun kills the tree. And tendrils are always trying to reach higher and higher so they can beat the competition to get to the life that they need, which is the sun. We have part of that in us as well. So we have the desire to cooperate, befriend, and be smart about living all together. And this other half of us, which is, I'm going to kill you and survive, and I'll eat you if I have to. And that's the two forces of nature. And that's what we're fighting all the time, the desire to give and the desire to take.
The blessing of the curse, or even awareness, right? With awareness, we have the capacity to be happy, but we also have the capacity to be hurt or to have pain. You cannot have one without the other. And that's the eternal conflict that we live with. The Bill, you when you went up to space, first of all, when you went to space, do you think that your experience would have been different had you been younger? Because you've experienced it at the particular place in life where there's
Oh,
these big questions.
the
Had you been in
experience,
your 20s, I think it would have been different.
the experience of going up in space would have been the same, even to the humor of the guy on the loudspeaker saying, we're going to remove the gantry now. Anybody who wants to get off should get off now. That actually happened. I thought, because of this is hydrogen in here. Didn't the Zeppelin burn up because
Exploded. Yes.
exploded. So hydrogen. Um, so that would have caused me the same apprehension as it did the age I am, as the age I might have been so many years earlier. But the appreciation of, and it's just surface. Every time I read something or hear something, I'm like, God, I wish I'd known that about how complex nature is and how nature works together and how it's all a knitted skein. It's like somebody had knitted a scarf and it's all there. And now we humans are plucking things out and things are going extinct and the whole complex frame of nature is being destroyed by us. And when I came down to earth, that grief, but more than sadness, hit me, and I didn't know what it was. I don't think, maybe, I know there are some human beings, some kids, I'm trying to think of that girl, Gersha, the Scandinavian young lady who's speaking up for the
Oh,
environment.
Greta. Yeah, Greta.
Yeah, that there are a few young people who are aware of what's happening, but mostly young people, myself included, are thinking, God, how am I going to pay the rent? Am I going to have the child? And who am I going to meet? Where am I going? I got an appointment. And they're too busy to contemplate the complexity of what we're talking about. It's only when you get older and you think, all right, my God, I just read, for example, just now, that there is a migration of insects through a very narrow passage between France and Spain. Do you know this one?
No.
There is a migration by millions of insects, mostly flies, but butterflies, all kinds of insects flowing south for the winter through a narrow pass that is about 30 meters wide. And they've now taking pictures. My God, millions and billions of these insects are flowing on a migration of flies and butterflies and things. It's incredible. So who knows about those things? Who cares about those things when you're 20 and you're trying to find a wife and a home and a way of making a living? It's only when you get older you think the marvel of insects
Yeah.
migrating, let alone zebras.
So do you think that the like going to space or going to Antarctica, one of their main values is to offer an opportunity for perspective, a physical experience where you see things differently? Like what would be the value for going to Antarctica for
You're going
going to
to,
space?
we are going to see, you've already seen it,
Yes.
I'm going to see for the first time, SEE, I'm going to see for the first time how the world was a million years ago in a deep freeze, because we know that underneath the ice is lush, probably great depths of coal and so where the earth was so much warmer and so much was growing on the continent of on the Arctic continents, north and south. So much was growing there, like the rest of the earth. The land was flourishing, as was the poles, because the earth was that so much warmer. About a million years ago, the ice formed and is now a mile thick in its best places, and it's barren, but it's not barren. So life forms abound, but they're different life forms, nothing that we're familiar with. And I'm going to go see this dichotomy that I've heard so much about. Uh, I'm a Canadian. I know about snow and long winters. I hate the cold, but I'm going to jump into one of those suits. What's the sponsor's name? What's the guy giving us the suits? I got you.
Uh, the suits, the space suits, or the
Oh, the
well, no,
warm.
you get well, no, you got Haley Henson who's going to be giving us some parkas.
That's what I mean. Parkas that go from toe to feet to head, right? I
Well,
mean,
yeah, it's a giant, it's a big one, and then you have your
right,
your
right.
little
The kind of
things.
stuff I used to use in Canada when a big
Yes,
snowstorm, from head to toe, it's zipped up and you're warm. I mean, that can't be said enough to the people coming on the voyage. We're going to be supplied with something that keeps us warm.
yes, and you're not doing the pull plunge.
And I'm now what? And you're not, and I'm not doing the polar plunge. No, but I'd like to go out on a kayak.
Yes, yeah, we'll get that. By the way, just before we continue, Antarctica is a continent, so it's a landmass, but the Arctic is an ocean covered by ice. So you don't have the landmass, you have an opening. So
Huh.
the
So
Antarctic,
Antarctica is the landmass.
yeah,
Arctic is the atmosphere. So,
it's an ocean covered with ice. That's one of the reasons why they talk about how climate change every year the ice cap, right? The portion of the ocean that is covered by ice is getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
diminishing. And this
So,
giant iceberg that's the iceberg from hell is
oh,
floating our
wait
way.
until you see the icebergs. Amazing.
Yeah.
Bill, give me well, two questions. We've been talking about nature in terms of destination, in terms of some of the things that happen over there. But if I like three words that capture the essence of nature beyond being a destination, what are these values or these principles that nature represents for you?
Well, let's analyze it. It's magical. It's passionate, and it's existential.
Three things that it taught you, that nature taught you as a teacher.
That in our arrogance, human arrogance, we're stewards of the world, we were told, is nonsense. We are part and parcel of everything around us. I think, since I'm learning more and more about intelligence of growing things, the mystical possibilities that the earth was formed by rocks and things coming from outer space, that there may be even an intelligence in the rocks. We know that granite has an energy to it that climbers talk about. There's a warmth. Who knows what granite is doing? Who knows where those rocks, those original rocks that form the foundation of Earth, where they came from? We know that there's a possibility that they contain microbial life, which can last, can stay alive, or whatever that definition is, for millions of years. So is the whole Earth alive? There's a thing called the Gaia principle. And Gaia, named by the Greeks the goddess of Earth, part of the definition of being alive is met by the Earth's, the totality of Earth's existence. It monitors its temperature. It has currents in the earth, in the ocean, and in the air that are like our blood flow. It flows. It it has equanimity. It stays within a certain bounds of carbon dioxide and oxygen. And strangely, and I don't know whether there's an answer to this, the salinity of the ocean has remained the same over millions of years, even though condensation from the ocean makes rain in the mountains. It flows from the mountains, and all those minerals and all those salts come down back to the ocean. It's a, whatever the technical term is, it's a fixed thing, so that this rain, this water, goes up and down, makes a circle, and it's circular. There's not going anywhere, and yet the salinity remains the same. How's that possible? How's it possible? Until we started to alter, until we start making electricity from the ocean, taking the ocean water, taking the salt out, throwing the salt back into the ocean, and using the water. That's going to destroy the salinity. We're in the process of making the ocean so salty that the fish can't live in it. And fish supply, I don't know what the percentage is to human life, but it's got to be 80, 90% of the protein that people eat, around the 8 billion people eat on Earth, comes from the sea. What is that going to do?
It
So,
will be complicated and mess things up.
have I answered your question?
Yes. I got another question.
Yes.
Do you think that the Earth is,
It's
if
flat,
we
no question about it.
is flat? Yes, it is. Flat and square. It has these really sharp edges on the corner.
Right,
If you're gonna fall off, just make sure you don't fall off on these corners because
right. Clean, clean.
clean. If we take right the Gaia um mindset that the Earth is alive in so many different ways that it's hard for us to comprehend. Do you also believe, would you extend that thought saying that the Earth is kind of a molecule in the universe and the universe has also a certain liveness to it or a certain sense
We
of
know so little. We know nothing. We humans know nothing. With all our instruments and all, and covered over by this black matter and black energy, we don't know. Dark energy, dark matter. We don't know what's going on. It just, if you let your mind roam, that is it possible that this earth that we've described as being alive, throbbing with life, and we're one of the forms of life, that we're alone in the universe with the billions and billions of suns, let alone the incountable billions of planets hovering around the, whatever that name is for the choice area, exoplanets, I think it is. Is it possible that we're alone in all that? I don't think it is. I think mystically, it's totally mystical, and it's part of some religions, and I don't know which ones exactly. The whole universe works like nature here on Earth, that all has an intelligence. We we fumbled for it as human beings became conscious, came up with the concept of God. And some people say, "Oh, what do you mean God?" Like he's dressed in Elizabethan robes and says, "Now there's life." Or is the term God really referencing the unknown intelligence. Look, when something, your quantum physics are so mysterious that when you, one of the things that sounds like science fiction, but is proven to be true, when you're examining some entity in quantum physics, it comes to life, comes to into being, you're able to watch it. And then after you've watched it, it disappears. That's a known, it sounds like that. Don't be ridiculous. Like one guy said, well, of course it disappears. You're watching it, then you look away, it's no longer there. But it apparently, and I laughed. I said, I never thought of that. You're watching something, you look at an ant crawl, and you look away, the ant's gone, right? But apparently it's there and it's not there. Somehow, what we're doing, that conscious thing of bringing something to life and then something disappears, why would that be unique? Why would that be? Oh, that's the principle of eyesight. And why? We can't be alone. It's too massive and beautifully formed, and the rules governing it are so exact. And the simplest rule, which have brought wars, if it doesn't work, it ceases to exist. I mean, what could be more logical and intelligent than that? And yet, millions of people have died as a result of saying, "Oh no, that's not going to work." Of course, it works. It's not defying the intelligence. It's, in fact, that is intelligent. What I don't understand, and that people are working on, is time. Time going forward, and then time going backward. How does time go backward? This start, and it goes forward from that moment on. How does this, and what happened before that? I mean, but apparently it exists. The complexity exists,
Yeah,
and
that
it's
that
got to
I'm
be
gonna have to sit
repeated.
down with Neil deGrasse because
Oh,
I'm
Neil deGrasse will be so much. This is what I hope takes
yeah,
place with Neil deGrasse.
yeah,
This is every evening with Neil deGrasse, in my view.
yeah. It's I just saw one of his recent panel discussion where he was talking to what's his name, famous quantum mechanic scientist, Japanese, gray hair. But even I think Neil was having
Oh,
trouble
the guy with the
grasping.
flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I really have my doubts about time going backward because it it life doesn't work like this, right?
Right. In our comprehension,
In our comprehension, and
what
someone would have to
what
explain to
we have
me.
to release, and maybe Neil has released it, our ego,
Yeah,
that what we're seeing is what exists.
yeah. Bill, I have this theory that we all have different characters, different personalities that match with different environments. So one
Say
of the
that again.
questions,
Say that again. You have,
so we have different personalities.
oh,
Each of us has a personality that match with a specific landscape or
right,
environment.
right.
So I used to ask this question to people: Are you an ocean person, a mountain person, a forest, or a desert person?
I wrote a song. I wrote a song with Rob Chernow about masks.
Yeah.
So originally it was about actors with their masks, and then I began to understand that we all have masks, and we present that mask depending on the situation. So whatever you want to term it, we're got the mask on for loved one, somebody you don't like, somebody you've had, somebody you casually know. But we have a multitude of masks, and that goes, and the mask goes on. How many times have you said, "Oh, hello," or "Hey," or "Hello"? I mean, the variation in your mask is not here on your face, but is in the filter back in your consciousness or unconsciousness. So the mask of mountain and the mask of ocean is is the same is not the same. My feeling about those four things is that they're the same. I have been on top of Matterhorn, standing alone. The helicopter had taken off, and they said, "Don't move because there may be a crevasse between your legs." And I'm there alone, looking around on the Matterhorn. I've been in the ocean quite deep, fed sharks. I've been in an aerobatic airplane called a Pit Special, and I was trained by an Air Force guy for about a week, looping and Cuban rolls and all that, flying. I'm a pilot. I was an amateur pilot for a long time. I'm not current now, but I flew aerobatic airplanes. The air, the mountains, the sea, the ocean, it's all, if you absorb it, if you let it filter through without blocking, oh, I'm a mountain person, it all becomes like the same. It's the same view, the monumental, magnificent view that we see rather than being isolated. I'm a mountain person. I can understand the affinity, but I don't understand I am this or I am that.
The wisdom builds wisdom. It's true. I mean, it represent it's not being categorized by what is around you, but understanding the value in each so that you can.
Yeah, I don't know what wisdom is. All I know is that upon some reflection, you can't reflect too much, but at the same time, you can.
Yeah.
By being totally absorbed in yourself, you don't do anything else. Like sitting cross-legged under the Bodhi tree, all I can think of is how do I feel as it gets getting some experience. But the concept being it's all one.
When you grew up in Quebec, I can't remember if in Montreal there would be
So
thunderstorms, but
Montreal,
Montreal, when you hear the wind howling, how does it make you feel? Does it bring you back memory, or do you like to hear the wind howling, or
no, I think of the wind howling as death. I see the wind howl. I feel the wind howling. It's a harbinger of something coming your way. Now, I've never been in a tornado. I've only seen pictures, but I've tried to feel the experience. And a 200 mile an hour circular wind howling. Now, we're not talking about a storm coming this way and, oh, it's going to be great, a nor'easter. And no, we're talking about howling. Otherwise, it's a zephyr or a breeze or a gale, but which we don't want to see crossing from
the Drake Passage? No, okay.
right. What's it called? What's it called?
The Drake Passage.
Drake.
Yes,
Drake's. Why is it Drake's Passage?
Francis Drake, the explorer.
Francis Drake did the first, went around
I
the
can't remember if he was the first one, but
in
it's named in his name, yeah.
Hey, listen, a friend of mine said, yeah, because I think he was going to go on the trip of a lifetime. Yeah, I get seasick very easily. And I said, well, don't let that, you'll get up, we'll take you some medicine, it's a day and a half, isn't it? 600 miles?
Correct. Now, that's one of the amazing opportunities that we have now. We get to do things that back in the days they would have to get on a wooden ship that would take weeks, or even just recently, research vessels would take 2, 4, 5 days. And if there's a system, right, a storm that passes through the Drake Passage, you have to deal with it. You have to go with it. But now we do it in a day and a half, 2 days.
I'm going to sit down and talk to him and convince him
Yeah.
to.
No, no, no. Plus, he just has to drink enough champagne, just for a day, and that's it. That's um, Bill, when you hear the thunder, how does it make you feel?
That's the voice of nature. I was doing a I think I mentioned it. I'm doing a campaign for saving salmon,
Salmon.
and so the director is saying, and over here we're going to cut to a bear going wow, and so they were shooting me in close up. My reaction to the bear, and I had lived. That's how I feel about salmon dying, and because that growl, that bear's growl, is bottomless. Thunder is like the voice of the earth. It's the earth's voice growling. Wow, I'm here. I listen. I love thunder. I love lightning. They had to haul me off a tractor. I was cutting grass on a farm, and there was a thunderstorm coming this way. This is back east, and somebody came running out of the get off the what? Get off the thing of it, and they dragged me off the tractor so that I wouldn't be the focal point of a lightning strike. Although, what a way to go, right? I mean, you're standing
Yes,
there,
well,
yes, bang, you're dead.
it's worse if you survive it because now you're burned. Some people have
Oh,
survived
you
it
don't want to
several
survive it.
times.
Yeah, you think, oh my God, it wasn't the voice of God at all. It was just this electrical. I could have put my finger in an electric plug and had the same sensation.
Jeez. When you see a sunrise or a sunset, how does it make you feel?
If I'm conscious enough, I'm thankful that my eyes and my brain can absorb those colors. We know that what we're seeing, I mean, it's interesting to speculate. We know that what we're seeing is just a narrow arc of the light spectrum
Yeah.
and yellows and greens and blues and all that. But there's so much more out there. So when I see a beautiful sunset, we're, as we all are, reminded of the beauty of Earth and the different colorations. But there's so much more going on in the sunset. Uh, the passage of the sun, the celestial bodies in motion, all of that. But the color of the sunset, like having read this book or reading this book about plants, I'm looking around at all the variety of colors of plants, and it's just it's it's overwhelming the richness that we have here on Earth that we've become accustomed to. You know, there's a sunset. Me too. I'm sitting talking to you. I'm overlooking broad expanse of Los Angeles, especially looking towards the mountains. I see a sunset every night from my house, and you know, it's not regular that I pause a moment and say, look at the sunset.
Mm.
I'm too busy reading the book on sunsets.
The I often think of back in the days where we knew less about the world and their understanding of sunset and sunrise and moonset and moonrise. Literally, the sun was going to sleep, right? There was not a rotation with other these things. There was
Or
a
there was a horse
two-dimensionality to
hauling the Greeks thought of it as a chariot hauling the sun around now.
so what is it that today is like we see that we can understand, but in 300 years we'll look back and we're gonna go, wow, their
They didn't
understanding
know,
of the world was really limited back then.
and that's going to happen the way
Mhm.
science suddenly, like the floodgates have opened
Yeah.
in sunset, in science. I just, I just come back, uh, Daniel, to we know nothing. We know nothing. We need to be abject in our humility of how little we know. And the little we do know is beyond magic, is beyond
Yeah.
imagination. Just the fulminating stars and the way they're growing in black holes and things that we're just discovering. I mean, within 100 years, tectonic plates and the Big Bang and the so I'm just enamored of information and love. What should I do?
You want to take it and then, or
Hello? I'm still on with Daniel. Am I got this next thing? 3 3 minutes. I will log in.
Yeah.
In fact, no, stay with me. Just be quiet a moment. I'll say goodbye to Daniel. Daniel, I gotta go.
Yes, absolutely. Bill, always a pleasure. Thank you so very
I'm
much.
looking forward to continued conversations with people, with somebody who knows more than a lot more than I knows anything. It would be great.
Absolutely. Me too. It's going to be 10 days of amazing enrichment conversation
Voyage of a lifetime.
and celebrating the human experience.
Take care, Daniel.
All right. Take care, Bill.
I'll see you soon.